Thank you for joining us today. My name is TJ DeMarco. I'm the pastor of Woodbury Union Church Presbyterian, located in Warwick, Rhode Island. This is a special edition of our YouTube channel where I wanted to address a specific issue that is of concern for me. And that is stems out of the story about the evangelist Ravi Zacharias, who was recently accused posthumously of sexual assault, of rape, sexual misconduct. And I don't know that we know all the details quite yet. Obviously, the rape is tragic. It's tragic that someone had went through that and then never saw him come to justice because he died before that could happen. Also that he was visiting prostitutes, and no doubt embarrassing for his family and for those who loved him. And so I was sorry to hear this, but I wanted to say something about it because I think that the church has really been a breeding ground for sexual dysfunction like this for a very long time, really for most of our history. And I think it's important that we address this, that we confess this sin that we've committed as a church, and look for constructive ways to move forward. And so this kind of sexual dysfunction, maybe with him, but certainly with a lot of people, has hurt so many individuals over the years. And I've talked to so many people who feel like the church really damaged them sexually, even if they weren't abused, even if they were just the recipients of these egregious teachings, many of which Ravi Zacharias taught himself, and many of which he defended himself. I've received several videos from him over the years that people have sent me about his view on sexuality in an effort to convince me of these ongoing repressive teachings of the church. So today I just want to address two mistakes that the church has made over the years that I think we need to confess that we've made these mistakes and find a productive way to move forward. Hopefully we can find healing for those of us who grew up in these conservative white evangelical churches especially, but also hopefully for the next generation, that we could do a better job of raising them up to be sexually healthy individuals. So mistake number one, the first mistake that we've made is that we have used the Bible as a handbook for sexual health. And that is a massive miscalculation that we've made for many years. Now, I know that my conservative friends are going to immediately quote 1 Timothy and say that, well, all scripture is God-breathed and useful for instruction. Yeah, it is useful for instruction, but sometimes it's instruction on what not to do. Another thing that people are going to say to me is that, well, you just don't take the Bible seriously. And quite honestly, that's a very stupid accusation. I've got 2 theological degrees focused mainly on the Bible. I've spent my entire adult life immersed in the Bible as a pastor. And so to say that I don't take it seriously is a ridiculous statement. There are many of us who are progressive who take the Bible very seriously, and seriously enough to deal with it in a way that is honest, which is something that evangelicals have not been able to do throughout their entire history. So if we're going to look at the Bible honestly and what it has to say about sex, what you need to know, and the reason why it can't be used as a handbook or a guidebook for sexual health, is that women in the Bible, all of the societies that you see in the Bible, all of them, women were viewed as property. They were either owned by their father, by their brothers, or by someone else in the family. So since they're property, their entire view of sexuality was colored by that viewpoint. And nobody really thought to question it. It was just what was. So whenever you see the Bible addressing sexuality, it's looking at it from that perspective. And for that reason, it's really difficult to apply any of this to our own lives today. I'll give you an example. So from Exodus chapter 22, if a man seduces a virgin for whom the bride price has not been paid and lies with her, he must make her his wife by payment of a bride price. If her father refuses to give her to him, he must still weigh out silver in accordance with the bride price for virgins. So if a woman is seduced, has sex with a man, and somebody else's wife, or she's engaged to somebody else, or even if she's not engaged, she's considered belonging to her father. And so because she's property of the father, you would have to pay the father for damaging that property, much like if you get into a car accident, you have to pay for the damage of a car. And this is why marital rape was not something that people even thought about. To say that you raped your wife was like saying that you stole your own car. Nobody would even think of that as something that was a crime. And so if you're owned by your father, you're owned by your brother, if you're owned by your husband, and that colors the entire viewpoint of every society here. Clearly, we can't use this as a guide. The next thing I'd like to read to you very quickly is that from Deuteronomy chapter 22, if a man is found lying with another man's wife, both of them, the man and the woman with whom he lay, shall die. Thus you will sweep away evil from Israel. So if this happens, you have to kill the man who either seduced or raped the woman, because he's done profound damage to the property of the father or the husband. And you also have to kill the woman because now she is damaged goods and no longer of any value, and they still have to feed her, and she's not going to bring any money into the family. So kill both of them in order to avoid this financial difficulty. Now you can say, well, that's the Old Testament. What about Jesus? Well, in Jesus's time, the viewpoint was the same. And Jesus's statements about adultery were really colored by that world in which they lived. I'm not saying that all of these people were evil, but I am saying they had a profoundly evil view and they hadn't realized it yet. So because of this, we can't really use the Bible as a guide for sexual health. And that's what Ravi Zacharias did in most of his teachings. He also used quite a bit of pseudoscience, but he and other Bible teachers have used the Bible as a guide for something that it really shouldn't be used for. And because of that, a lot of people have been hurt over the years, over the centuries, really. And we need to overcome this. And instead of looking to the Bible, we need to look somewhere else. Now, what part of the Bible can we look to for help in guiding us? And the most important thing we can always do is to love God and love our neighbor. And so this is why issues like consent are so important. And it's why we encourage people to have healthy, loving relationships where everyone is in agreement with what's happening. And things like that are expressions of love for neighbor. And this is a way that a lot of the biblical communities really fell short in their way of handling sexual health and in their treatment of women. And so we want to stop this. The Bible is not a guide for sexual health, and it never should be. And if we do use it in that way, it will do irreparable harm. The most important part of the Bible that will guide us in sexual health is love for neighbor. And that's what Jesus said is the second most important law. The second way in which we failed is that we've failed to look for experts when it comes to sexual health. So that's point number 2. We've failed to look to the experts. Now, there's a lot of people who may feel that they've been hurt by the church because of the sexual teachings of the church or by abuse within the church. It has been happening for a very long time, and denying it is no use. And quite frankly, it's not an easy thing to overcome. I'm not really able to deal with the abuse side of it today, but I do want to look at the teachings that are harmful, especially in condemning people who happen to be born gay or transgender or people who are struggling to come of age sexually and they're heavily involved in the church. We've really hurt these people over the years. And I've tried in my ministry to stay away from these subjects for this reason, but I think it's important to address it now, is that we should really look to the therapists, to the experts. And if you feel like you need to talk with someone, see a licensed therapist, see someone who knows what they're talking about. Look around, research who the best people are, and sit down and talk with someone. If you can't afford that, and probably most people can't afford that, there are some good books that I can recommend for you. And I've got them written down right here. I don't want to mess up the names of them. So the first one is a book called Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel. It's not written from a Christian perspective, but it is incredibly informative about how to have a healthy and loving sexual relationship. Another book that if you feel like you would like a guide for the journey or someone to walk with you in this, and you don't really have anyone you feel you can comfortably talk to about it, two books to recommend. Nadia Bolz-Weber, her book Shameless, excellent. Really will help you feel accompanied and also have some great information. I mean, she just writes beautifully. Also, a book called Pure by Linda K. Klein, and I will reference all of these in the comments section of this video. If you're not much of a reader, a podcast that I would recommend is called Sex with Emily. Really a lot of help. It's not from a Christian perspective, and you probably disagree with a good portion of it, but it really helps to take the shame out of sexuality and helps with giving some good education. The host is an expert, and she really makes it a lot of fun. So that's the second thing we failed to do, is we failed to look to experts. And if you want to move forward with this in your life, look to the experts. They're going to be your guides. Don't look to the televangelists like Ravi Zacharias or any of the others. These are people who have done immeasurable harm around the world. And evidently, someone like Ravi Zacharias allegedly did not live up to the standards that he set, and may have been damaged by the church himself, as so many people have been. So I do hope this is helpful. It's always painful when a great leader who we respect is accused of these kinds of things, and even more so if they're guilty of these things. Our hearts go out to his family, but more importantly for all of us, I hope that the church can get real about sexuality, about what the Bible says about sexuality, and find real help for people who need it, and hopefully bring up the next generation in a better way. So we can be shameless. We can realize that sexuality is just part of who we are as human beings, and a beautiful part of who we are as human beings, and something that is a great way to express love and affection and to experience pleasure. And I hope that moving forward, we as the church can do much better. Thank you so much for joining me today. God bless you. And if you like what you hear today, we do worship services every Sunday. Feel free to join us. If you don't have a church and you feel like you would like a place that would be safe for you and could maybe even help you overcome some of these repressive and backward ways of thinking you may have grown up with, stop in and join us on Sunday mornings. We have a lot of fun. We're on YouTube every week, and we're happy to have you and just join us as a guest. And if you ever want to reach out with a prayer request, please go ahead and do that through YouTube, and we'll add you to our prayer list. So until next time, God bless, and I hope you have a wonderful day.